Morning, everybody, and we are here with the Intrinsiq team. So far, it's Jonas, but we're hoping to be joined by Mark a little bit later on, which is going to be very surreal because Mark is melting over in Australia while Jonas and I are freezing over here in Malta. So, but that's the joys of international education. First of all, Jonas, how are you?
Good. As you said, it's freezing. As we were talking about earlier, it's in Malta, it's freezing inside while it's bearable outside.
Exactly,
Our
exactly.
houses weren't meant for the cold.
It's a nice and beautiful sunny day, but freezing. But in any case, we are here to talk as the crawler on our screens is showing. We're here to talk about all things CMS, so all the things that are related to CMS and school management systems for 2022. And obviously, we're here to do it with the people who know best. First of all, Jonas, I'm going to start talking to you a little bit about the strategy that Intrinsiq has, obviously, for all those following us. Intrinsiq and us publish articles about schools management systems on a weekly basis. This year, we're changing our strategy a little bit. Can you talk us through that?
Okay, so the idea was that, I won't say that COVID is now over, but I think everyone's fed up of COVID measurements and thinking all about how to tackle the COVID situation. So the idea was to move further along and focus on the future, on when things do get back to normal, a new normal, whatever it is. So we decided to showcase what Intrinsiq has to offer in a different way. The idea was to focus on the process that Intrinsiq goes through, how we deal with new clients, the process on how we get them up and running, and obviously the after sales. The process is quite long, but obviously we can go through that further, and we'll be explaining that throughout the weeks to come in our blog and article and whatever. The idea of we wanted to split how the news updates from us look. So as I mentioned, one is the Intrinsiq process, and another section I was hoping to add for a long time is a how it works section. That was missing from our site. So we do have a help guide for our users, but those who are curious and want to know how Intrinsiq works. So basically we'll be having updates, monthly updates, and those will be posted on our website. So basically will be a focus on each function, how it works, and what the benefits are.
And in fact, I saw an infographic posted about this. Will that also be something that you will be doing on a weekly basis?
Yes. Infographics are a bit tricky depending on the article they're based on, because some of our articles are quite big, and in order to tone it down into an image, basically, it's a bit difficult. But some of the articles, the how it works one especially, can be narrowed down to just show what is happening step by step. So that would be easy. Yes, the idea is to have it on our website and to showcase each and every function that the Intrinsiq system has.
And I guess it's all about making the jar, because obviously at Intrinsiq, I mean, you're a tech company, so there's a lot of jargon. And from what I'm noticing from your latest posts these past few weeks, ever since the new year started, I'm beginning to get the feeling that this jargon is being translated into layman terms. The aim of these articles is to explain in a language and manner that people like us who are not so techie can understand.
Exactly. I always like to say, because Mark speaks the computer language while I speak English. So I try to bridge the gap between the two. And yes, that's the idea, to simplify as much as possible how the system works So people get to know what benefits they can get from Intrinsiq should they sign up.
Okay, so we have the process, and we will go into each and every one of these a little bit in a little bit more detail. We have the how it works. I know there are also interviews lined up. I mean, this is the first one, but they won't all be like this. I won't always have your two pretty faces on my screen. What's up with that?
Okay, so the idea stemmed from because at Intrinsiq we do value our customers, and we try to maintain a relationship that goes further after the system is done and it's up and running. As part of our let's call it after sales, we reach out to customers, see what changes they need, if anything is up, if they want to upgrade. We showcase what we added to the system, see what they want to know. And now we want to go a step further. So the idea is to have a three-way conversation, basically, with you guys and one of our clients. So we showcase the client, and it's sort of a testimonial, but also the client can show us what they offer. So it's a good marketing opportunity for them as well.
Of course. And what's also interesting is that the people following that interview, yes, will get to know the client. They will get to know about the services that the school particularly offers. So we as schools and agents will be asking all of those questions during the interview. But I think the most interesting thing about this interview will be that we will get to hear about the client's experience of Intrinsiq through the client himself or herself. So again, talking about, what language they're speaking, whether it's technical or non-technical, but I think it's all about, getting a realistic account of the experience from the clients themselves. So that's definitely okay. I'm going to try and bring Mark into the interview. So let's hope this works, Mark. And here you are.
Hi. I made it in the end.
Yeah. You definitely did. Well, I did promise the people who are watching us that I would be joined by another pretty face today, so I'm happy that you made it. So, Mark, whilst you were melting away in Australia, which is how Jonas and I described it, Jonas and I have been talking a little bit to our guests and our viewers about the new content strategy that Intrinsiq has for 2022, and Jonas was walking us through the articles that we have planned for you guys, and that you guys have planned for our viewers and readers. Mark, I'm going to start by asking you a different kind of question. What does Intrinsiq have in store for 2022? I mean, how do you see this working, and how do you see this whole thing transitioning into the new normal as we are all describing it?
Yeah, I think there was a big sort of reaction, I guess, over the last few years to going virtual, and some people sort of managed to make that work and some didn't. I think one of the key things that we're trying to help clients with at the moment is just to get everything streamlined, because a lot of them have had their staff on long-term leave, and then they're all sort of starting to come back now and realizing that they've sort of forgotten how to do things. And so it's a good opportunity to, while we're helping to remind them that there might actually be more efficient ways, and to pick up new processes and procedures in the system. As simple as some of the improvements that we've made over the last couple of years that they've never actually had a chance to look at because they were on leave. Now we're, as part of that transition back to work, we're actually able to point out, well, yes, we can remind you how you used to do it, but actually this is a more efficient way that we've put into your system while you weren't there. So that's one of the, I think the key things that's going to come over the coming months is just that retraining aspect.
And when we speak of the improvements that you've made to the system over the past couple of years, um, what have some of these improvements been? How has Intrinsiq evolved over the last 2 years?
Yes, a lot of it is around speeding up processes, like with dashboarding, so that the clients can see exactly where the students are in the admission state, or drag and drop classroom allocation, being able to see visually immediately, okay, this is how many students I've got in the class next week versus this is how many are in here this week, and things like that. So being able to, in one single place, make changes that maybe before they had to go to 2 or 3 different screens. Those old screens are still there because we don't like to scare people where they can't find something. But we're really using this opportunity now to say, well, rather than do this, and this, just do it all in one place in this one area that we've built for that purpose.
Okay, and that actually brings us to the fourth kind of article that Intrinsiq will be publishing on a weekly basis. So we have the interview that we will be doing. We have the how it works. We also have the intrinsic process that Jonas was talking about. And the fourth article is support. And I guess these kinds of things that Mark is talking about, Jonas, correct me if I'm wrong, fall into this category, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what shall we expect in the intrinsic support articles, Jonas?
So basically, it's a more complex way of explaining how the system works, and explaining the new processes that are coming in, what improvements we're doing. It's basically a backstage look at what Intrinsiq is up to. Apart from that, it's also an informative way to let people know on how stuff works. As I mentioned before, the how it works is a bit more simplified. So basically it says you do this, step by step, and this is what happens. While the support part of it is more complex. It's a more in detail explanation of what happens in the background, how a customer can benefit from it. And basically it's a support system to our clients and those who might be interested.
Okay. So when you look at these different kinds of articles, and obviously I'm focusing on the articles right now because the articles also reflect the kind of the ethos of the company. You guys are all about support. You guys are all about training. You're all about explanations. Mark, how does this philosophy of running your business reflect, your client relationships?
Yeah, it's always been the key to us that existing clients are the most important thing. We're not desperate to sell a new client at the cost of an existing client, because it's the existing clients that stick with us through thick and thin. Certainly that's been demonstrated the last 2 years that we've obviously had to help them in many ways, and they've had to struggle through the 2 years, but they've stuck with us and we've stuck with them. And that, I think, is the key sort of, if you can build a good relationship with the client. And really that is about the support, that making sure that if a client needs help, it's never, well, you have to look it up or go and do this or read the article, read the manual. We're always there with a friendly face to say, no worries, this is how you do it. Or, just pointing them back to, and I think that's particularly true now more than ever, because that, as I mentioned before, the big changeover in staff or just forgetting how to do things when you haven't done them for a while, that's really going to be key over the coming few months. As I know personally, I've seen so many tickets from clients that are like, this isn't quite right, and it's not that it's not right, it's that their memory's faulty. But we don't go back to them and say, well, actually you're remembering it wrong.
Exactly.
But actually go back and help guide them back into the process that they've not remembered that they used to do. And I think that's why, one of the reasons why we've come up with this model this year is we have a lot of our existing clients who keep following us on LinkedIn and Facebook and such, and they'll actually come to us and say, hey, I saw this on LinkedIn, does my system do that? And that's a good opportunity. It's a way of promoting to our existing clients what they can actually already do, as well as speaking to new clients.
Okay. And I mean, what you're saying is interesting, because one of the things that I always but one of the things I always associate with Intrinsiq is the idea that it is a bespoke system. So when clients, Jonas, I know you also talk to a lot of clients and have a lot of, meetings with people.
Yeah.
How do you get to explain to them that the system is bespoke, and why is this an advantage? Because I mean, when somebody thinks of a bespoke system, they're also going to think a lot of cash that I have to spend. But why is it a good idea for the system, for a school management system, to be bespoke?
Well, there are various points we could go over to explain that. But what I like to stress most on is the fact that since it's bespoke, the system grows with you. So let's say you're a small school now, but in 5 years' time, you're a bigger school. You have different buildings. So the system can grow with you. That's one of the advantages of it being a customizable system for you. Okay, most people don't really focus not on the future, on getting bigger, but it does help knowing that if you have the system now, it's not going to be another system should you get bigger.
Exactly.
So
They
the system will
they
grow
won't
with
have to
you.
change. They won't have to change. They won't have to spend more money
Exactly.
if the system grows. Apart from that, one of the things that I notice and that I always like to include in the Intrinsiq articles that we publish on schools and agents is the fact that no two schools are alike. And because Intrinsiq is based on, reflecting the way in which the school is managed and reflecting the way in which the school is run, then it makes sense for it to be bespoke. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, it's often the case when we talk to clients who are transitioned from, or are thinking of transitioning from a off-the-shelf type solution, that they will say, "Oh, we don't use that part of the software because it didn't match our needs," and they'll fill one particular gap with spreadsheets. It might be academics or admissions, and that really reflects the lack of customization of the system they're using. Because if they can't use one particular block of it, then they run into all sorts of challenges because of that. And so that's why we really feel, and it's not that complicated to provide a bespoke process of enrolment, so that it's how they handle the enrolments, or a bespoke application form, or the core of the system, the core of how schools function is all very similar, but actually it's just that fine tuning that makes the difference between a system which you work around, or the staff, they do their job and then they put it in the system because the boss wants them to, versus a system that's there to assist them, which is the whole point.
Exactly. And I think you're mentioning an important fact over here, that obviously the people who use the system are involved in the discussions as you are building the system. So that then saves time when it comes to training them. It also saves, because at the end of the day, we're human beings and we are all a little bit reluctant to change sometimes. It also saves a lot of frowns when people are told, listen, we are changing school management system, we're moving to something else. It's one thing if they're seeing it for the first time and everything is, looks a little bit scary the first time round. And it's another thing if they've been involved in the process, they know what they can expect and they know how they're going to use it. So I think it's very important also to stress things. I mean, these are all things that come up in articles that we publish, but I'm sure that this is all based on the client meetings that you have.
Yeah. In fact, I just wanted to jump in. What I noticed a lot in this industry is most language schools so far, but even other clients, they do want to involve the other heads of department to get their point of view. So basically, it's not just the school director who decides, just listen, we're going to change. The employees are involved in the process. In fact, before we even sign a client on, we have different calls with other departments to go through what their department would be using, so that we get the whole team on board and not just whoever is running the school.
And it's good to mention
later
that
on, yeah.
Jonas pushes for that when he's speaking to when somebody contacts us and says, I'd like a demo, then we're happy to meet with them and show them. But then at the end of that call, the follow-up always is, okay, who else can I meet with at your school?
Yeah.
Because, yes, you've seen it now, but actually we want to show it to all of your team so that they can give you the genuine feedback as to whether it's useful to them. And that way it's not that decision that, as an owner, I've decided. That's true, that the owner at the end of the day decides, but the rest of the team are on board, and that makes it way easier to bring them into the process rather than later on saying to them, oh, here's what we're doing, and they don't know what's going on.
Exactly. So yes, I think that is definitely one of the most valuable features of Intrinsiq. And perhaps to start summing up a little bit, I think it would be a good idea, just like we went over the structure of the articles, to go through very, very briefly and non-technically to go through the different areas of Intrinsiq. So we have the academics department. Let's start with the academics department. What are the main features, Mark, of the academics department at Intrinsiq?
I think the differentiator for Intrinsiq is really our class management system, because all of the systems track attendance and allocate students into classes and do the things, but we've thought outside the box and made the whole class management process visual on a single screen, so that when the director of studies is working out his classing for the next week, he can see the whole school in a single view, all of his classes, all of his students, which ones are coming and going. And also something that's very unique about Intrinsiq is that he can do it ahead of time. So he can go to next week's schedule and see the students that are going to arrive, allocate them to classes, move existing students, but none of that has any effect now. It just takes effect in the future. So that screen enables him not just to see what's going on now, but also everything, like to plan ahead for the week or the next week or the month ahead, which really helps with like working out teacher allocations. How many teachers do I need? Often schools use private, contracted teachers, and knowing, I'm going to need in 2 weeks' time an extra teacher or one less teacher, that can make a huge difference to the stress levels for that role.
Definitely. And on top of that, Intrinsiq also has the contactless attendance, right? So this is something that I personally find very interesting. I always discuss this with Jonas, because when we used to work at the same school, it used to be, obviously this was before we even knew about Intrinsiq, but it used to be quite daunting to stay running from one annex to the other to collect attendance. And sometimes it would, classes would start at 9 o'clock. By 10:30, we wouldn't have gone through the whole school to make sure, or to check that everybody is there. And then if people are in there, it's a lot of hassle to try and see where they are. With Intrinsiq, this is all, sitting down in the comfort of your air-conditioned office, getting live updates from the teachers who are logging in students on their phones, right? Or using the QR code attendance. And, the director of studies would know there and then if there's something wrong in one of the classes, if there is a student who's absent. You also have to get in touch with students in such cases. You also have the push notifications, right, Jonas, where you can send SMSs to students.
Yes. SMS and emails, and most of it is automated. So the customer usually sends us templates and they're all up there. So basically, they don't have to type in anything. So let's say a
Okay.
student has 85% attendance only. So a warning can be sent. Nothing has to be typed in. Just click two buttons and they have it.
Okay. Mark was talking about classroom allocation. I know, Jonas, that you have a similar feature for accommodation, which is another big,
Yes.
again, this is something that you and I have discussed, because obviously we know how problematic that used to be. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yes. When I found out about it, I remember talking to you. Oh my God, I was really impressed because I know the amount of time we used to waste calling each and every host family. Do you have space for this student? It used to take us ages. Now, what the system does is using all the data that's already in. So basically, whenever you input a student booking and obviously have the host family details, it uses all these details in a sort of algorithm. And when you try to log in, when you try to allocate a student, it will load up the host families that will match
available.
best to the student.
Exactly.
Then all you have to do is just choose the room, click, and the host family gets an email automatically saying, listen, I've assigned you the student this date. Do you accept or not?
Okay. And if I remember correctly, the host family also has some kind of autonomy over here because they can fill in certain details of when they are not
Yes.
available, if they are renovating their house, so one of their rooms is not going to be available. So all of that is definitely good. And one of them, and I left this for the very end because it is my favorite thing. I mean, as a marketer, I'm all for data. I'm all for, forecasting and statistics. One of the things I personally love most about Intrinsiq is the system's ability to forecast the kind of reports that the system can generate. Mark, can you tell us a little bit about that? And
Yeah,
it's all at the click of a button.
Yeah, I mean, this is often the case when we speak to people about, my current system does X, can I do the same? And our search interface is as easy or as complex as you want it to be. You can go in, type a student number, and away you go, or a student's name. But if you want to, you can build a set of criteria up that can be any sort of convoluted, give me all the students that left last year that are under 18, that are from Korea, that also like cats. It can be as arbitrary as you like. And we always say anything that the system stores, you can report on yourself. You don't need to be asking for a custom report or pulling out 5 different spreadsheets and merging them. The system has such a powerful searching feature that you can produce exactly the information you need. And then, you can throw it out to a spreadsheet if you want to take it off with you. But the idea being that you can see as quickly, as easily as you can come up with the criteria, you can see what's going on at the school.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's definitely, I mean, the accommodation and the academics things are very interesting to me because we used to do them in the past. But this reporting is something that I think is extremely beneficial for schools because it can, it can highlight any trends which are coming out. It can, it can help schools forecast better. Good. So I think what we've done today over this past half hour is explained a little bit to our viewers what Intrinsiq is all about. But I'm sure that we've had a lot to say. They have a lot to digest and process. So what I always recommend is that people should really get in touch with you guys. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in your email address over here in the intrinsiq.net, which obviously people can use. So this video will continue to be available on our social media channels for as long as you want it to be. This video will also later on today be included in an article that we will be publishing. So all our readers and followers will have all the opportunities they want to get to know about what Intrinsiq do and who you guys are. I really do recommend that people get in touch with you, that they visit your website, which I'm also dropping over here. That way, they can start talking to you about their school, because that's the only way in which they can really start to understand what Intrinsiq can do for them.
Exactly. I just want to add one thing. So anyone who contacts us, we can jump in on a call with them. No commitments from their end. We just want to showcase the system. So if you're curious enough and you think you need the change, I mean, jumping on a call, it's just 20, 30 minutes, Mark. Not more than that, usually. At least you have an idea. And obviously, there's no commitments. But at least you know what's out there, yes.
Exactly. Okay, so Mark, is there anything you'd like to add from your end?
No, I just think I back up what Jonas said. Jonas is there to show you what we can do, and he's not that scary. So book a call with him and have a chat. And like I say, we're not a hard sell company, because we want to make sure that you have what works for you. So if you're at all interested, even if you're not a school owner, even if you just work at a school and you're interested in what's available, and you don't think your school will accept it, well, we're still happy to show you what's available, because it's good to know what's in the market.
Very good. Okay. Oh, and I think Jonas has now melted away. No, Jonas is probably frozen. Well, I think on that end, before I have any more people freezing or melting in one part of the world or the other, guys, I thank you both so much for your time today. And as always, I wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. To all those who have been following us, like I said, get in touch with these guys. They really are truly amazing. So Intrinsiq all the way. Have a lovely rest of the day, guys.